Hello everyone, it's been a while but I've been cooking a new project which is trying to make the Bowser in the Fire Sea parallel universe route RTA viable. What I have now is definitely doable, the only question is how consistent and how fast it can be done. But first, look at this elevator block and tell me how many sides it has. It's a tapered cuboid, so you'd think it has 6 sides, but you're actually wrong. The answer is actually 7. It has a top, a bottom, 4 sides, which are ceilings, and a copy of one of the sides, which is actually a floor for some reason. That allows you to do stuff like this. This doesn't help the setup. In fact, this actually got in my way while trying to look for setups, since it causes some weird interactions at specific angles and speeds. I might be the first person in history to have ever been foiled by this bit of geometry, which is pretty funny. Anyway, let's first have a look at an ideal version of my new RTA PU Strat. Note that all of my demos use the task start because that's what I used as a base, but the task start up to the pole only saves about 0.4, so it really shouldn't affect the general conclusions much. This gets a 20-second XCam, which is about 11 seconds faster than Circum's ideal theory task for Ultimate Cycle. Now here's a more realistic version, which has longer pauses, no early elevator activation, and does the quick mash with a pumping pause buffer technique. This version is only about 7 seconds faster than Circum's ideal theory, where most of the difference comes from the pause pumping at the end, and another decent chunk is from not getting the early elevator activation. Alright, so before delving into details, the core reason a consistent setup is possible is because Mario does not lose speed when landing if you're holding neutral. This means that if you do a BLJ while holding neutral, and you have a set starting speed, you're going to get the exact same sequence of speeds regardless of your mash timing. You don't have to mash very fast to keep an elevator BLJ going either. It's just like the Toxic Maze BLJ in that regard. You can just count your BLJs and you'll know what speed you're at. However, when you're over 400 speed, you need a ceiling or out of bounds to hold you back. This is why a lot of BLJs have to be performed in a small height range, where the second layer of the bits lasagna can hold you back. But more about that later. The PU movement itself is pretty simple and will put you in the lava near the final funnel. A route going directly into the warp would probably be so much more complex that you'd lose more time setting it up than you'd save on the final bit of movement. Let's look at the inputs for the realistic version now. First, you want to be idle on this slope facing more or less downhill with this lakitu cam. There are quicker ways to do this and ways to already activate the elevator, but for now let's just look at the basic version. Now you want to start walking right, pressing Z and pause at the same time. If this is hard, you may have to add a pause before walking as well. Now you want to hold down and unpause and press A a couple frames later. Personally, I find it easiest to just tap A twice. This will give you a long jump with an angle of 15,207. For the speed building and PU movement, you need between 15,201 and 15,216 inclusive. If you press A too early, you won't long jump at all and have to retry. Too late and you'll have the wrong angle. Now you want to activate the elevator and ride it with 0 speed, just like at the start of the Toxic Maze BLJ. You also want to turn your camera 45 degrees left. After some stationary BLJs, you want to do one while holding left. You can hold left before starting the BLJ because you have 0 speed and it won't do anything. You want to pause and press A on the same frame so you can go back to neutral. Now you have to do 17 more neutral BLJs and pause on the last one, while also turning the camera one more tick at some point. Ideally, you want to be at a height of -155 at the last BLJ, because that will give you the most space to work with. You should be able to tell your height by the pause screen and hopefully manage to space it out by feel. Once you have the 316 speed and are at the right height, you're going to have to do 12 quick BLJs to get to about 40k speed. You have 27 or 28 frames to do these, corresponding to a mash speed of about 12 Hz if you were to do it without pause buffers. Do note that if you do the pause method, you have to be careful not to BLJ too quickly, since the BLJs at this speed range have an airborne frame in between each landing frame. You want to kind of pump the start plus A with a gap of at least 2 frames between the presses. This sounds hard, but actually is quite comfy once you're used to it, at least on keyboard. Once you've gotten in the 12 BLJs in the critical height range, you should have a speed of about 40k and be at a height of 115 or less. From here there's only 7 more BLJs and they can be slow BLJs like at the start, since we're hitting out of bounds now. Note that if you're starting at a height of exactly 115, your first BLJ has to occur on the first possible frame, otherwise you have 5 frames like normal. Exactly on or 1 frame after the final 7th BLJ you want to hold up. This should be possible without a pause buffer as you have 2 frames and it doesn't matter what your magnitude is, but you can pause buffer on the final BLJ if it's too hard. This will cause you to walk for a couple frames and bleed some speed down to the final speed of 615k. Now we have the PU navigation. First you hold up for 1 or more frames to get cardinally aligned. Then you turn 180 degrees by moving the stick clockwise to the down position. It has to be clockwise to manipulate the camera. Now you have time to get ready to press A and R at the same time. You can actually press R a frame early as well, but no earlier than that. Now you will be landing for 4 frames and you want 2 of them to have a neutral joystick. It doesn't matter which ones. You'll just have to let go of your stick while you jump and then flick back up and hope you get 2 neutrals. I'm not sure how consistent this can be. Alternatively, you can just slowly move the stick upward while landing and maybe get 2 neutrals. In any case, if you did it well, you'll be in a PU and have slowed down to 482k speed, holding up. This will cause you to turn around again and automatically pop back into the original universe. Note that while Mario is in a PU, you cannot let go of the R button or your N64 will crash and you'll have to reset. You also can't pause while in a PU since that moves the camera into a PU as well. If all went well, you'll pop out just to the left of this bridge, slightly above the lava. You will be in a free fall as well, so you can actually dive here. The fastest movement from this point I found was to simply dive and lava boost directly into the warp. So that's it, a theoretical PU route for RTA. It'll remain to be seen how fast and consistent this can be. I'd like to show you what happens when you're in the critical speed region of 400 to 40k while either being too low or too high. If you are too low, you pop through the wall and your run is over, although it does look cool. If you are too high, meaning you were too slow with your BLJs in the quick section, you'll pop up through the floor on the second lasagna layer and lava boost. Note that if you had 40k speed at this point, you will pop out right next to the elevator and you can actually still make a good cycle, so that's not too bad. Finally, I'd like to show a really wild negative jump into a squish under the tilting pyramids I found while testing. You're just completely stuck in a squished state here and don't get burnt by the lava. The game force kills you after a couple seconds in what is actually a pretty rare softlock avoidance mechanism. Alright, that's it. See ya. Special thanks to my patrons for supporting my SM64 research. John W., Neon Fuzz, Widit, Deca, Runner Cam, Dan Park, Padronis, and Brett S.